It's strange. We keep hearing we're more connected than ever, right?
Yeah.
But then you look at kids today and there's this epidemic of mental illness. So much isolation, so much fear. It just doesn't quite add up, does it?
It really doesn't. It's a paradox. And honestly, it's left a lot of us scratching our heads. Parents, teachers, young people themselves are wondering what's going on.
Well, welcome everyone to the Deep Seek Diaries. We're the podcast that takes you deep into books that make you think. And today, wow, we're diving into one that's causing some serious waves. It's Jonathan Haidt's The Anxious Generation, how the great rewiring of childhood is causing an epidemic of mental illness.
Yeah, this one, it's more than just a book review. If you've got a phone, if you've got kids, or honestly, if you just feel like things have fundamentally shifted in society recently, this conversation is probably for you.
Haidt even calls it a kind of life raft. He's trying to explain why it feels harder, maybe, to focus, to really connect with people, build those deep relationships.
It definitely challenges how we think about growing up today.
Before we go on, please don't forget to hit the subscribe button and like the video. This podcast is known as the Deep Seek Diaries, and you can find us on the major social media platforms like YouTube, Instagram, Facebook. Linked in the description section are all the resources and discussion today, including books, websites, and so on. Please go through our terms and conditions as soon as you can. Now sit back and enjoy the podcast. Okay, so let's unpack this. Haidt's main idea. He talks about this perfect storm, right? Overprotection in the real world, he says, and underprotection in the virtual world. That's the core reason for this crisis in kids born after 95.
Exactly. He calls it the Great Rewiring, and he really pinpoints the timing. Around 2010, give or take, that's when things really flipped.
Flipped how?
Well, think about it. Flip phones out, smartphones in. Suddenly, these kids had powerful computers with social media apps right in their pockets. Before that, internet time was often, supervised on the family computer.
Right, in the living room or something.
Yeah. But then, boom, unsupervised online time just skyrocketed. And Haidt argues that face-to-face stuff, just hanging out, playing, it plummeted. It got replaced by DMs and feeds.
And the consequences.
Oh, he lays them out. Sleep deprivation is a big one, kids scrolling late into the night. Addiction. These algorithms are designed to hook you, and it fundamentally changed how they connect, or maybe how they don't connect authentically. It built this foundation for, isolation and anxiety.
It's a really stark picture. Like kids are being, robbed of childhood. Screen time, pushing out things like free play, real connection with parents, learning from people around them.
That's exactly his point. And it hits hardest during adolescence because, the brain isn't fully baked yet.
Do you elaborate on that, the adolescent brain vulnerability?
Sure. So the frontal cortex, that's your brain's CEO, basically, handles impulse control, planning, thinking about consequences. It's not fully online until your mid-20s.
Mid-20s. What?
Yeah, so you throw these highly addictive apps and intense social comparison at a brain that literally doesn't have the hardware yet to manage it properly. It's rough. They're just so susceptible to the constant pressure, the curated perfection, the fear of missing out. It makes them incredibly vulnerable to anxiety, depression, all of it.
That context about brain development really lands the urgency, doesn't it? Haidt also talks about depression itself in a slightly different way, not just about external threats.
Yeah, this part's fascinating. He digs into why people get depressed. And he says it's not always about facing big, scary things together. Often it's about feeling isolated, lonely, or even feeling useless.
Useless? How does that tie in?
Well, if kids aren't getting those real-world chances to try things, fail, succeed, contribute in meaningful ways, they lose that sense of, I can do things, I matter. And then you look at social media. He calls platforms the most efficient conformity engines ever invented.
Oof, strong words.
Right. Because they push this constant performance, this comparison game. You always feel like you're falling short or you might get canceled. It fuels that feeling of isolation and, uselessness instead of fixing it.
And he uses that metaphor, the stress wood thing, to explain why kids need challenges.
Yes. The stress wood, it's a great analogy. Like wood needs stress bending, pressure to get strong and useful. Kids need stressors too. Not trauma, but like everyday challenges, figuring out a game, navigating a disagreement, falling down and getting back up.
Things that happen naturally in free play, usually.
Exactly. Unsupervised play is where they learn to manage their bodies, manage social stuff, overcome little fears, all without an adult jumping in immediately. It builds resilience, what he calls anti-fragility. You actually get stronger from the stress.
We are embodied creatures.
Yeah.
I remember that line. Learn to manage the physical world first.
Precisely. Before spending hours in the virtual one. Without that stress wood foundation, he argues, kids become fragile, easily overwhelmed later on.
It really is a call to rethink childhood entirely. So, maybe for listeners who don't know him, who is Jonathan Haidt? What's his background?
Right, good question. He's a social psychologist, currently a professor of ethical leadership at NYU's Stern School of Business, very well respected. He's known for tackling complex, often divisive topics with nuance and data.
He wrote The Righteous Mind, didn't he? And The Coddling of the American Mind.
That's him. So he's been thinking about morality, polarization, and what's happening with young people for a long time. He brings a lot of research and weight to this argument. It's not just opinion.
Okay, so he's diagnosed the problem pretty thoroughly. Does he offer actual solutions? What are these 4 cultural norms he talks about?
He does. He proposes 4 big shifts, things we need to do collectively. First, no smartphones before high school. Basically, basic phones for calls and texts maybe, but no constant internet or apps until they're around 14, 9th grade.
Delay the emergent. Okay, what's second?
Second, no social media before 16. The idea is to protect them during those really crucial teenage years when identity is forming from that constant comparison and the influence of algorithms pushing content at them.
16. That's specific. And number 3.
Third, phone-free schools. And he means really phone-free. Devices stored away for the entire school day. Lunch, breaks, everything. Create space for actual learning and real-life socializing. Less distraction, more interaction.
Makes sense. And the last one.
And finally, number 4, which kind of underpins it all, far more unsupervised play and childhood independence. Give kids back the freedom to explore, take small risks, figure things out on their own. He sees this as absolutely essential for building skills, overcoming anxiety, and growing into capable adults.
Those are significant shifts, not just tweaking things. And they definitely put the onus back on parents and society. He talks about parents' phone habits too, right? That continuous partial attention. What's that exactly?
Yeah, continuous partial attention. It's that state we all fall into where you're kind of physically present, but mentally, you're halfway somewhere else. Always checking the phone, half listening.
Guilty as charged sometimes.
We all are. But Haidt argues it sends this subtle message to kids that you're not quite important enough for my full focus. It chips away at that deep connection they need. But the hopeful part, he suggests, is that if we collectively adopted these norms, they could actually be doable, maybe even easy eventually. And you see the impact in reviews. One person wrote they actually uninstalled social media and started focusing more on their daughter, realizing how much time they were losing to doom scrolling.
That's powerful. It really is. That direct personal impact says a lot. I hope you are enjoying the topic so far. Please subscribe to the Deep Seek Diaries and like this video. Don't forget you can find us on the major social media platforms like YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. Linked in the description section are all the resources in discussion today, including books, websites, and so on. Okay, let's talk reception. How has the book actually landed with readers? You see the numbers on Amazon, 4.6 stars, over 9,000 ratings globally. It's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
70% 5-star.
Incredibly strong. Yeah, the reviews echo that. You see must read over and over for parents, teachers, anyone working with kids. People praise how he takes complex research and makes it accessible, easy and digestible, they say.
They like the evidence.
Definitely. Words like important, game changer, urgent, essential pop up constantly. They mention the startling data, the robust scientific evidence. It seems the sheer scale of the problem he outlines really resonates and, frankly, alarms people in a motivating way. It's clearly struck a major chord.
But no book pleases everyone. Right. We should look at the criticisms, too. Some reviewers weren't sold on everything, like his analogies, Mars, prison. Some found those a bit much.
Yeah, some people felt those comparisons were ridiculous, maybe detracted from the seriousness. And there was pushback on some of his proposed solutions, too, especially around government or tech interventions. Some felt those were more problematic than helpful. Diagnosing is one thing, prescribing is another.
Right. And what about the play-based childhood stuff? Some specific examples, ruffled feathers.
He mentioned some older cultural rituals, things like public celebrations for puberty milestones, to illustrate how communities used to guide transitions. But bringing up examples like celebrating first periods or circumcision, some Western readers found those truly horrific or just completely irrelevant to solving today's screen time issues. They felt it was a strange detour.
Okay. And practicality. Did people question if that old-fashioned free play is even possible now?
Yes, that came up. Critics pointed out that Haidt maybe doesn't fully grapple with why unsupervised play declined. Real concerns about traffic, denser cities, maybe even liability or the strain on emergency rooms if playground injuries went up. The world has changed.
Good point. Less space, more cars.
Exactly. And a few reviewers also mentioned, a bit of repetition, that the core message, while powerful, maybe could have been delivered more concisely.
So some valid critiques on the edges, maybe the specifics of solutions or some examples.
For sure. But it seems like even those who had criticisms often agreed with the core diagnosis. The overwhelming feeling is that Haidt has identified a massive, urgent problem, backed it with compelling evidence, and started a desperately needed conversation. The book clearly makes people think and want to act, even if they debate the specific how.
So wrapping this up, what's the big takeaway? The anxious generation sounds like a real wake-up call. A plea to reconsider how we're raising kids in this digital world.
Absolutely. It's about finding that balance, again, protecting kids where they're vulnerable online, but also empowering them, trusting them more in the real world so they can grow strong and independent.
Which leads to a final thought for everyone listening. Haidt presents some really stark data about the harm being done, but he also believes, quote, our kids can do so much more than we let them. So the question for you is, what are you willing to change? In your own life, your family, your community, how can we help bring back some of that resilience for the next generation?
Something to really mull over.
I hope you have enjoyed today's episode of the DeepSeek Diaries. Please don't forget to check out the linked resources in the description section. Hit the subscribe and like buttons as you head off if you haven't already. Until the next episode, goodbye.